secessionism. This is it's essentially a kind of a social media website of the Obama White House, the We the People website. And the story is that if you can get a topic up there, if you get 25,000 people to sign for it, then you get an official response, right? And who knows what that is. I guess it is largely symbolic, but it's nevertheless a very dangerous and disorienting kind of thing. So in the wake of Obama winning the election, we have groups of sore losers, right? Disgruntled characters who wanted Romney, I guess. Is that a credential? That seems to be it. They wanted the asset stripper, the Wall Street hedge fund hyena, the vulture capitalist, the corporate raider. They wanted Romney in the White House. Nice going, guys. And now they say, since they didn't get what they want, they're giving up on the United States of America. Well, that's really nice. We've never had any doubt here. Secessionism is the essence of anarchy and treason. And once it comes, as General Sherman told all those people in Georgia, once you've given up the state, right, once you've chosen the path of anarchy, then, there's no more property. Because these characters, libertarians, think that property is some kind of a metaphysical category. It's not. It's the result of having a government, a state, is indispensable. Otherwise, there is no property. There's only the law of the jungle. So the alley-oop caveman economy that would be a free market is one where property doesn't exist. It's the rule of the stronger, right? Faustrecht, the law of the fist and the clenched fist at that. So we get these characters. Now, it's a complete fraud by the Tea Party. It's by something called teaparty.org of California. It's one of the brands of the Tea Party in California is the center of this. They got it going. It's not spontaneous. It's astroturf. It's that somebody got money from some fascist billionaire, right? You can think of some fascist billionaires out there who might be interested in doing this, right? People who maybe gave their money to Karl Rove in the idea that they could get Obama out, and then they find they can't. So they're sore losers, and they want to do something, a kind of a Parthian shot. So they give some money to teaparty.org or 1776 Tea Party, I think it's also called. So they start with this, right? Texas, of course. The last time I looked, it's up to about 700,000 signatures, and some of the states have gone over the 25,000. The usual suspects: Mississippi, Alabama, Texas. These places, unfortunately, have a very characteristic social structure, which is based on local oligarchy. It's based on towns that are dominated by families, and even some of the larger ones retain this feature. What is the peculiarity of the American South that even after the horrible experience of secession and again the burning of Atlanta and the burning of Richmond and laying waste to most of Georgia and all of these horrors and hundreds of thousands of dead, people who say that's worth considering to try again, absolutely idiotic from any point of view. So they're interested in doing that. And what is the point? What's the social structure behind this? If people who are interested in this, look at a book by a guy called Cash, like cash as in cash money. It's called The Mind of the South, and it's written at the end of the 1930s, but it's a sociological, ideological profile of what goes into this. And specifically, I would point to the following. Land reform, right? We mentioned land reform before under the question of the American Civil War. If you want to modernize a backward social structure in the terms of the distribution of wealth and power, one of the key things you have to address is land reform. And in much of the United States, right, west of the Mississippi, in the northern latitudes, this is done by the Homestead Act, right, the Morrill Act of 1862, which makes provision for education, but it means that you're going to get a farm if you go there and cultivate it. And this, unfortunately, passed the South by. There never was a land reform in the South. And there was an attempt later on by Thaddeus Stevens in the Congress to impose a kind of a land reform. What he wanted to do was to confiscate the estates of the Confederate leaders and then distribute them to the freed men, the freed slaves, and that would have actually done it. But that did not pass because by that time the Wall Street group had taken over. Right, Jay Cook of Philadelphia, the sort of patriotic financier, had been wiped out. The House of Morgan, the Belmonts, the Astors were dominant once again, and they made sure that the Reconstruction was aborted. And it also meant that for a lot of people in the North, a lot of the moneyed classes, the question of Southern Reconstruction was very quickly eclipsed by labor struggle. Right, that the class struggle in the North moved to center stage for a lot of them, so they lost interest in carrying through on Reconstruction. So you're left with this, and this is what you get with this obsession with secessionism. And again, it's the Brigham Young doublethink, right? Brigham Young says, I love the Constitution, it's divinely inspired, it's the work of God, and I'm seceding, and I'm waging war against the United States. And even though I'm only a territory, I am telling the government in Washington that they can't do what the Constitution says they can. The Constitution says territories can be governed by Congress pretty much any way the Congress wants. Well, Brigham Young, no. And then he says, and in addition, I'm telling you that nobody from the United States can cross my territory. This is what he did in 1857. I urge you to get the full proclamation. It's in Just Too Weird, Bishop Romney and the Mormon Takeover of America. We've gone through the fact that the Second American Revolution has already occurred, and how interesting that Texas should be leading the pack, right? Modern Texas is entirely a creation of the federal government. In particular, the fact that Jesse Jones, the head of the Reconstruction Finance Corporation under Roosevelt, when this was used to provide credit to save companies, for example, Twinkies, right? Hostess bakeries, Hostess products today could be a recipient of very low-interest federal loans from the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. Jesse Jones is really the father of the infrastructure, the industrial infrastructure of modern Texas. And there's a little question of electrification we'll get to in a minute on World Crisis Radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Coffee in the Thanksgiving program. Remember, in the midst of the flurry of consumerism, don't forget Just Too Weird, Bishop Romney and the Mormon Takeover of America with polygamy, theocracy, and subversion. So, secessionism, this entire dismal episode, it worked out so well the first time. We have to go back, right? The dog will return to its vomit, I suppose. And, of course, the leprechaun has to join in, right? Ron Paul, having, we thought, ridden off into the sunset with his swan song on the Congress, the floor of the Congress, right? The well of the House. No, he has to come back from the cerements of his forgotten sepulcher, political sepulcher, of course, to speak up in favor of secessionism. It's totally American. That's the revolution against Great Britain. And he obviously thinks of secessionism as a kind of check and balance, right? It's like the Magna Carta. The original Magna Carta says that the barons can wage civil war against the king if the king doesn't do what they want. And they can kill anybody around the king except they can't kill the king. So Ron Paul's really saying something like this, that somehow constant private warfare, privateers should be the check and balance. Well, no. The whole point of the government, inspired by Machiavelli and implemented by John Adams based on the Massachusetts Constitution, is to avoid civil war. That's the goal of the whole government, so we can't build it in. And as for this idiotic appeal to the Founding Fathers, George Washington has 4 principles of government. He says, what is indispensable for the survival of the United States? Point 1, an indissoluble union of the states under one federal head. An indissoluble union of the states under one federal head. I've just done an article about all of this. It should be up on Press TV by the time you hear this this program. So this is radically anti-historical. And I'm afraid people who jump on this, where are you headed? Where are you going? What kind of company will you find yourself with? Look at the array of sociopaths who are going to be interested in secessionism. Now, if you listen to Ron Paul, he also says he doesn't advocate secessionism. After Appomattox, he seems to say secessionism is a dead letter. Yeah, but he says it's important to keep talking about it as a check on federal power. Well, I think we need to check Wall Street power and oligarchical power. And remember, the secessionism is the essence of the New World Order. It is the essence. It's the nerve and fist of the New World Order. You're talking secessionism. You're serving the New World Order. You're a traitor or a dupe working for the New World Order, what they call the New World Order anyway. When imperialism defeated the Soviet Union, there was plenty of good reason to keep the Soviet Union together, minus the Baltics, minus Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, minus the Transcaucasus, so minus Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, but keeping the rest, keeping Ukraine, keeping Belarus, a whole bunch of Central Asians, all 5, if they wanted to stay, maybe having somebody like, who knows, Nazarbayev of Kazakhstan becoming the president to show that it was no longer just a Russian show. Plenty of good reason to keep the USSR, but no, the imperialists had to smash it. Then they go on to smash Czechoslovakia, right? The old CSSR has to be carved. And in Europe, they're still carving. Kosovo is carved out of Serbia, right? Even before that, they promote the breakup of Yugoslavia, right, with many, many bloody results. That's a NATO intelligence operation primarily. Obviously, one of the things going on is that the nomenclatura, the oligarchies of these places, and this is relevant to what we're hearing today, the oligarchies say, well, if we can only maintain oligarchical privilege by playing the card of secessionism, that is what we will do. That's what happened in a lot of these places in former Soviet Union and so forth. And we've got, obviously, Sudan carved into 2 parts, Iraq carved into 3 parts already, Kurds, Sunnis, and Shiites in that order. We've got the attempt to create Kurdistan, which would carve Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. We've got Pakistan set to be carved into 4 parts. This is now the Bernard Lewis plan, updated, right? British Arab Bureau, Bernard Lewis Institute for Advanced Study. Iran to be carved into 5 parts. We've got old scenarios, right? The 8 nations of North America, I think, to carve the United States and Canada. What's the point of this? And of course, the British, where they are in control right now, secessionism is on the march. Belgium was created by the British in the 1830s, so now we're told that it's impossible after all these years, right? 175, 180 years from the 1830s to now, but now it's impossible. The Flemings and the Walloons can't get along. And the pièce de résistance, the centerpiece, is Scotland, right? So Scotland is now going to be an independent country, according to some, except, wait a minute, under the Queen, under the Commonwealth, under the European Central Bank, under the International Monetary Fund, under the Bank for International Settlements, under the World Trade Organization. The real revolution, dear friends, is against those imperial supranational institutions. The essence of the empire is the empire at the top, everything I just said, plus NATO, and then no nation states, they're all gone, and then these petty, squabbling little regional entities, the microstates and mini-states, in Brzezinski's terminology, the rump states, the failed states, the results of partition studies, as the Soros people like to call it, and so forth. Isn't it obvious? And when Ron Paul went to the well of the House and said there is nothing to fear from globalism, universal free trade, and a single world currency, he's talking about the destruction of the nation state. And how ironic, right? It's the 712th anniversary of the arrival of the Emperor Henry of Luxembourg in Milan, where he created, with the help of Dante, the Visconti power in Milan, which then became the prototype of the modern state between 1310 and about 1400. That's where the modern state intervenes. And the modern state, the potentialities of the modern state have not been exhausted. It is still the best way to fight those imperial institutions that I have mentioned. The European community, European Union, is in a separate category, I would say, because it can be seen as a kind of Articles of Confederation for a future united Europe. This is not quite the same thing. But as for speculation, anybody who does this has to be confronted. Anybody who talks this nonsense has to be confronted with the fact that they are doing the work of the New World Order.